My husband's ex told the kids to treat me like a stranger, so I did the same. And they finally noticed what that meant. His ex-wife told the children I was a stranger in their house, so I decided to act like one. It began, as these things often do, with love. I met Mark at a time when I thought love was a closed door. He was kind, with a sadness in his eyes that I recognized. He was divorced, a fact he laid out on our first date like a necessary disclaimer. 2 children, he said. Leo, who was 12, and Mia, 10. He spoke of them with a fierce, quiet pride that made my heart ache. I fell for him first, for the gentle way he held my hand, for the way he listened. Then, I fell for the idea of them, of us. I imagined weekends filled with laughter, movie nights, the messy, beautiful chaos of a family. I had always wanted to be a mother. Mark's ex-wife, Laura, was a constant presence from the very beginning. He called their arrangement an amicable co-parenting situation. It felt less like an arrangement and more like a haunting. Her name was a ghost in our conversations, a justification for canceled plans, a reason for the phone to buzz incessantly at all hours. He assured me it was all for the kids. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to be the cool, understanding girlfriend who didn't get jealous, who didn't see the red flags waving in my face, so I played the part. I tried to be a friend, a support system, an asset to their carefully balanced world. When the kids were with us on weekends, I poured all my energy into them. I learned that Leo loved science fiction and that Mia was a talented artist. I baked their favorite cookies, a different batch for each of them. I helped Leo build a model rocket that we launched in the park, watching it soar until it was just a speck against the blue. I bought Mia a set of professional-grade watercolors and sat with her for hours while she painted landscapes she saw only in her mind. They were cautious at first, as they should have been. But slowly, they seemed to warm to me. Mia would show me her drawings first. Leo would ask for my help with his math homework. Small victories that felt like monumental triumphs. I even extended my efforts to Laura. I would help the kids pick out thoughtful birthday and Mother's Day gifts for her. I made sure they called her every night before bed. I was trying to show her, to show everyone, that I wasn't a threat. I was an addition, not a replacement. Mark saw my efforts and loved me more for them. He told me I was a miracle, that I was healing a part of his life he thought would always be broken. After 2 years, he asked me to marry him. He got down on one knee in our living room, the kids hiding behind the sofa, giggling. They rushed out to hug us after I said yes. For one perfect, fleeting moment, it felt like my dream was coming true. We were a family. The wedding was the catalyst. It was a small ceremony, just close friends and family. The kids were in the wedding party. Leo was the ring bearer, and Mia was my junior bridesmaid. They looked beautiful. They seemed happy. But the day we returned from our short honeymoon, the temperature in the house had dropped 20 degrees. Laura's amicability had evaporated. The texts to Mark became more demanding, the calls more frequent and laced with a new, sharp bitterness. The children were the battlefield, and I was the enemy combatant. The first sign was subtle. Mia came home from a weekend at her mother's house and wouldn't look me in the eye. She gave me one-word answers and spent the entire evening in her room. I told myself she was just a moody preteen. I gave her space. But then I overheard it. I was walking past her bedroom and heard her crying softly. She was on the phone with Leo, who was sleeping over at a friend's house. Her voice was small, broken. She whispered, "Mom said she's not our family." A pause. She said we don't have to listen to her. That she's just a stranger living in Dad's house. The words hit me like stones. A stranger. In my own home. The home I had helped build. The walls I had painted. The garden I had planted. The poison had been administered. Now, I just had to wait for it to take effect. It didn't take long. The change was immediate and absolute. It was a coordinated campaign of erasure. They stopped speaking to me directly. If Mia needed a ride to dance class, she would stand in the kitchen and announce to the air, "I need to go to dance." She would be looking at her father, even if he was in another room and I was standing right in front of her. If I answered, "I can take you, sweetie," she would pretend not to hear me. She would wait until Mark replied. I became invisible. They would set the dinner table for 3, not 4. When I would point it out gently, Leo would shrug and say, "Oh, I forgot." "How do you forget a person who lives with you?" I stopped asking. I just got my own plate, my own silverware, and sat down in the empty space they had left for me. The silence at the table was deafening. They would talk to Mark, around me, through me, as if I were a pane of glass. I tried to talk to Mark about it. He saw it, of course. He would try to correct them. "Kids, she asked you a question." Or, "Leo, don't be rude." But they were masters of plausible deniability. I didn't hear her. I wasn't being rude. I was talking to you, Dad. It was gaslighting by 1,000 tiny cuts. Mark felt trapped. He was caught between his wife and his children. He loved me, but he was terrified of alienating them, of giving Laura more ammunition. He kept counseling patients. "They're just kids," he'd say. "They're confused. Laura has gotten in their heads. Just give them time. They'll come around." But time was making it worse. The more I tried, the more they pulled away. My attempts at kindness were rebuffed. The cookies I baked sat on the counter until they went stale. The new books I bought them remained on their nightstands, spines uncracked. I felt myself shrinking. I started retreating to our bedroom, eating my meals on a tray while watching television. The main floor of the house didn't feel like mine anymore. It was their territory, and I was an intruder. My presence was a burden, an inconvenience they were forced to tolerate. I was living in a house full of people, but I had never felt so utterly alone. The lowest point came on my birthday. It was a Tuesday. I had held onto a sliver of hope that maybe, for one day, there could be a truce. A simple, "Happy birthday," was all I wanted. I woke up that morning and walked into the kitchen. Leo and Mia were eating cereal. They glanced up when I entered, then immediately looked back down at their bowls. They didn't say a word. They finished their breakfast, put their dishes in the sink, and walked out of the room, brushing past me as if I were a piece of furniture. Mark was still sleeping. I stood in the silent kitchen and felt something inside me crumble. I baked my own cake that afternoon. A small chocolate cake, my favorite. It felt pathetic, baking a cake for a party no one would attend. Mark came home with flowers and a beautiful necklace. He kissed me and held me and told me he was so sorry. He tried to rally the kids at dinner. He brought the cake to the table, lit the candles, and started singing "Happy Birthday." His was the only voice. Leo and Mia sat there in stony silence, staring at their plates. I blew out the candles and wished for it all to be over. I cut the cake. They both said, "No, thank you." I watched them excuse themselves from the table and disappear into their rooms. Mark and I ate our slices in silence. His guilt was a palpable thing, a third person sitting with us. That night, I cried until I had no tears left. I cried for the family I thought I was building. I cried for the woman I used to be, the one who wasn't invisible. I cried because I knew, deep down, that Mark's "give them time" was a fantasy. Time wasn't a healer. It was a weapon they were using against me. The final straw came 2 weeks later. I came down with a vicious flu that left me weak and aching. I was confined to bed, dizzy every time I tried to stand. Mark had to go to the office for an important meeting he couldn't miss. He set me up with water, medicine, and the television remote before he left. The kids were home from school. Around midday, my throat was parched. The glass of water on my nightstand was empty. I heard Mia in the hallway outside my door. I called out to her, my voice hoarse. "Mia, can you hear me?" She appeared in the doorway, her expression neutral. "Could you please bring me a glass of water?" I asked. "I'm not feeling well enough to get up." She looked at me. This child I had loved, this girl whose tears I had wiped away, whose nightmares I had soothed. She stood there for a long moment. Then she said, "Dad will be home soon, you can ask him." She turned and walked away, leaving me alone in the quiet room. That was it. It wasn't just teenage moodiness anymore. It wasn't just misguided loyalty to their mother. It was cruelty. A deliberate, calculated act of unkindness. And in that moment, something inside me didn't just break. It hardened. The grief I had been carrying for months turned into something else. It turned into resolve. Laura had told them to treat me like a stranger. They had followed her instructions to the letter. My mistake was that I had kept trying to be a mother. I had been playing a different game, by a different set of rules. Not anymore. Lying there in bed, thirsty and burning with fever, I made a decision. If they wanted a stranger, they would get one. But I wouldn't be the sad, pleading stranger they had created. I wouldn't be the victim. I would be a roommate. A polite, detached, and utterly self-sufficient roommate who shared a house with them and their father. The game was over. My new life began the next morning. I felt better, the fever having broken overnight. I got up before anyone else. I went to the kitchen, made myself a single cup of coffee, and toasted one piece of bread. I ate my breakfast standing at the counter, scrolling through the news on my phone. I washed my mug and my plate, dried them, and put them away. I left the kitchen exactly as I had found it. When the kids came downstairs, I gave them a brief, pleasant nod. "Morning," I said, my tone light and neutral. Then I walked out of the room. I went to the laundry room. I gathered only my and Mark's clothes. I walked right past the overflowing hampers in Leo's and Mia's rooms. I did our laundry, folded it, and put it away. Their clothes remained where they were. That afternoon, I went grocery shopping. I bought the things Mark and I liked. I bought my favorite yogurt, his favorite brand of coffee, the vegetables we used for our dinners. I did not buy Leo's favorite brand of chips. I did not buy Mia's preferred juice boxes. I did not buy the frozen pizzas they liked for quick lunches. The pantry, once stocked for a family of 4, was now stocked for a household of 2. When Mark got home, he looked confused. He asked me why I hadn't done the kids' laundry. I looked at him calmly. "I am following their lead," I said, "and their mother's instructions. I am a stranger in this house. Strangers do not do other people's laundry." He started to protest, to give me the "be the bigger person" speech. I held up my hand. "No, Mark. I am done being the bigger person. Being the bigger person has gotten me ignored, disrespected, and treated with cruelty in my own home. I am done." My voice didn't waver. "They wanted a stranger," I continued. "They have one now. I will be polite. I will be civil. But I will not provide the services of a mother or a housekeeper. Those services are for family, and they have made it abundantly clear that I am not." He saw the look in my eyes. The softness was gone. The desperate need for his children's approval had been burned away by my fever and Mia's casual cruelty. He was shocked, but he didn't argue. He just nodded slowly. The first few days were quiet. The kids seemed not to notice, or perhaps they enjoyed the lack of interaction. I continued my new routine. I made dinner for Mark and me. I would plate our food and we would eat, often in the dining room. I would simply tell the kids, "There are leftovers in the fridge if you're hungry." Before I sat down, they were on their own. The first crack appeared on Wednesday. Leo had a major soccer game. He came into the living room where I was reading. "My uniform is dirty," he announced to the room. I didn't look up from my book. He waited. The silence stretched. Finally, he said, louder this time, "My uniform. It's not clean." I turned a page. He huffed in frustration. "Dad!" he yelled. Mark came in from the garage. "What's up, buddy?" "My uniform is dirty and my game is in an hour," Leo said, shooting a glare in my direction. Mark looked from Leo to me. I saw the plea in his eyes, a silent request for me to just give in, to make things easy. I gave him a small, almost imperceptible shake of my head. Mark took a deep breath. He looked at his son. "Well," he said, his voice firm, "the washing machine is in the laundry room. You know how to use it." Leo's jaw dropped. "But it won't be dry in time." "Then I guess you've learned a valuable lesson about personal responsibility," Mark said. Leo stared at his father in disbelief, then stormed off to his room. Mark looked at me, a mixture of pride and terror on his face. I gave him a small, grateful smile. He was finally on my team. The next incident was with Mia. She overslept and missed the bus. This happened occasionally, and I was always the one to drop everything and drive her to school so she wouldn't be late. She came running into the kitchen in a panic. "I missed the bus! I need a ride." I was sipping my coffee. "Dressed for work." "That's a shame," I said calmly. "Your dad has an early meeting he's already left for." She stared at me, waiting. "So? You're here." "I am," I agreed. "And I'm leaving for work in 5 minutes to be on time. I can't be late today. But I'll get detention," she cried. "I suppose you will," I said. "You should probably start walking. It's a long way." I finished my coffee, rinsed my mug, and walked to the door. "Have a good day," I said over my shoulder as I left. The fallout was immediate. Laura called Mark, screaming. She called me neglectful. She called me a monster. She accused me of abusing her children. Mark took the call on speakerphone so I could hear it. When she finally paused to take a breath, Mark's voice was cold as ice. "Laura, you did this," he said. "What are you talking about?" She shrieked. "You told them to treat her like a stranger. You told them she wasn't their family. You taught them to disrespect her and ignore her. They did exactly as you asked. And now, she is finally doing the same for them. There was silence on the other end of the line. This is the world you created, Mark continued. You wanted her out of the picture? Fine, she's out. She is no longer providing the free services of a chauffeur, a cook, a laundress, a tutor, or a maid. Your children are now responsible for themselves in this house. This is a direct consequence of your actions, so do not ever call my wife a monster again. You want to fix this? You tell your children to fix it. He hung up the phone. The house became a fortress of tension. The kids were miserable. Their lives, which had run so smoothly on the rails of my invisible labor, were now completely derailed. They struggled. Homework was forgotten. Lunches were non-existent. They wore wrinkled clothes. They complained bitterly to Mark, but he held the line. Talk to her, he would tell them. Apologize. Show her you see her as a person, not a servant. But they were too proud, or perhaps too scared of their mother's reaction. So the stalemate continued. During this time, I reconnected with my own life. I had dinner with friends I hadn't seen in months. I spent a weekend with my sister. I rediscovered the woman I was before I had tried to shrink myself to fit into their family. Mark and I started going to therapy together. It was a space where we could talk openly about the damage that had been done. He apologized for not standing up for me sooner, for his passivity, for asking me to endure the disrespect for so long. We were rebuilding our marriage on a new, stronger foundation. A foundation of us against the problem, not me against his kids. The turning point came from Leo. He had a huge history project due, one he'd known about for a month. In the past, I would have been all over it, helping him research, buying supplies, proofreading his paper. He was completely on his own now. The night before it was due, he was in a full-blown panic. He had barely started. I was in the kitchen, packing my lunch for the next day. He came and stood in the doorway, looking lost. I'm going to fail, he said, his voice quiet. I didn't say anything. I just continued making my sandwich. I miss how it was before, he finally admitted, looking at the floor. I stopped what I was doing and looked at him. So do I, Leo, I said, my voice soft but firm. I miss it very much. But you have to understand something. You and your sister, on your mother's instructions, ended that. You can't treat someone like they are worthless and still expect them to help you. Tears welled in his eyes. I know, he whispered. I'm sorry. It was the first apology I had received in almost a year. I appreciate that, I said. But an apology is just a word. Things have to change. I didn't help him with his project. He got a failing grade. It was a harsh lesson, but a necessary one. Mia's apology came a few days later. She found me in the garden. She was crying. She told me everything. How her mom had sat them down and told them I was trying to erase her, that I was temporary, and that if they were loyal to her, they had to push me away. She said it was a test, Mia sobbed. I knelt in the dirt and listened. I'm so sorry, she said. I miss you. I didn't rush to hug her. The wound was too deep for a simple hug to heal. I miss you too, I said honestly. But trust has been broken, Mia. It will take a long time to rebuild it. That was the beginning. It wasn't a magical fix. We started family therapy, all four of us. I laid out my boundaries. I would not return to the role I had before. Our new relationship had to be built on mutual respect. They had chores. They were responsible for their own laundry, their own homework, their own schedules. I was there to help and support them, but I was not there to manage their lives. I was their stepmother, not their servant. Slowly, painstakingly, we started to build something new. It was awkward at first, but we found our way. We started talking again. Really talking. Leo discovered I was a huge fan of the same sci-fi author he loved. Mia and I started gardening together on weekends. It wasn't the idyllic family I had once dreamed of. It was something more real, more fragile, and ultimately, more precious. It was something we had all fought for. Years have passed now. 6, to be exact. Leo is in his second year of college, studying engineering. He calls me every Sunday, just to check in. Mia is a senior in high school, a brilliant artist with a scholarship to her dream art school. She still shows me her paintings first. Our relationship is one of quiet, earned respect. They know I am a force to be reckoned with. They know my love is not unconditional. It is predicated on kindness and decency. Mark and I are stronger than ever. 4 years ago, we had a daughter. Her name is Chloe. She has her father's eyes and my stubborn chin. Leo and Mia adore her. They are fiercely protective of her and of me. They saw what their mother's bitterness did to our family, and they refuse to let that poison touch their little sister. Laura is still in their lives, of course, but her power is gone. She is a distant, cautionary tale. The children see her for what she is, a sad woman who tried to burn down her ex-husband's new life and nearly took her own children down with it. Sometimes I think about the woman I was when this all started. The one who baked cookies and tried so hard to please everyone. I don't recognize her anymore. I learned a brutal lesson in my own home. You cannot make someone love you. You cannot kill yourself with kindness to win the affection of people who have already decided to hate you. The only thing you can control is your own response. My response was to become a mirror. I showed them their own behavior, reflected back at them without emotion, without anger, without pleading. I simply became what they asked me to be, a stranger. And it was only when they experienced the cold, empty void of a stranger's indifference that they finally understood the warmth of what they had thrown away. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it out of self-preservation. I chose to save myself. And in doing so, I saved us all. I built a new family from the ashes of the one I thought I wanted. This one is better. It is stronger. It is real. It is mine.